Okay.
For once, I'm actually going to give you a heads up that we're actually recording.
So I can screw it up anyways?
We're already recording. That was a joke. I would never give you a heads up that we're recording. Actually, I'm going to start this. Well, I want to start this through a different perspective. Do you think you've gotten better at being natural? On the mic?
Yes. So it's actually very funny. With public speaking for me in general, I'm always nervous when I start out, but then I get into it and I'm like, okay, I'm chilled out now. I'm chill, bruh. I'm good, bruh. It's all good, bruh. Mike, like I think like the first time we did it, I was like super like, okay, I have to stay right here. Full Joe Rogan, like, keep it about a fist away from your mouth and all that jazz. But now I'm just like, we'll just do it. Just do it.
Yeah, I think, at least for me, I've observed that I used to find it very awkward to talk to you, but with having the background knowledge just that other people are listening to this conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, not to get too meta about what we're doing right now, but like I used to struggle with, I'm like, okay, how deep did I just go just talking to Jake, or how do I have to like do a certain, I think you balance this really well, but like you have a more sophisticated way of bringing in the audience. I just go in. I'm like, oh, this is what we're talking about.
I'm aware that I feel like, so remember that one class we shared where the father was there with us in college, and we would just like bicker and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I always treat it like that in a way, because it's like, I understand we can't say certain things or do certain things because there's people watching and they wouldn't, either A, they would get offended, or B, they wouldn't understand.
For sure.
So there's that. But it's also like, I think I'd be very different if I was streaming alone. And the reason I say that is you're kind of a crutch for me in a way, because I can bounce off you and you can bounce off me. And so it's very natural. It's a good conversation. I love it. It's actually one of my favorite parts of the week, honestly.
Samesies, bro. Yes.
Oh,
yes,
he
I'm
does care.
All right. I take that back.
And I ruined it for him again.
Exactly.
But when I feel like a couple of times you've had to step out to like get your cookies out of the oven or something like that. And
there were muffins. Okay, get it right.
True story. And I'm just like, oh crap, I'm alone. I'm out in the ocean alone, man. My buddy just got pulled down by the sharks.
It is an awkward thing to, if you don't have it scripted, you just like go stream of consciousness, because you're, I guess at a certain level you're like, okay, I need someone to give me feedback that what I'm saying is making sense. I need someone to be there to be like, okay, dude, you're going off to the deep end. I don't have my internal calibration of a conversation right. Like I'm just learning to have a conversation versus just barraging people with questions all the time.
And it's like, it's not good for man to be alone, as the good book says.
Yes.
And one of those reasons is like, as iron sharp as iron, like we can sit here and bounce off each other. We can develop a conversation instead of just, reading the paper, basically. So, yeah. Which,
I wonder how much introspection is valuable there. So, one of the things I've been thinking about recently is authenticity, and this is a theme. Obviously, going back to the first episode of to the beginning, like the New Year episode. One of the themes I've been thinking about is authenticity, and learning how to think like who you really are. For you to be authentic to other people, you have to. There's a certain, at least from what I've observed, there's a certain there's a certain introspection you need to have, which is funny because you can't know if what you're saying is true to you until you talk to other people. But you need to, in some sense, talk to yourself to talk to other people. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's on this. Like the only thing I have to adjust when we're talking on here is, one, I can't make certain jokes, as you know.
You keep alluding to these jokes. What jokes are you making?
Yes, and you gotta keep people's noggin jogging. It's always worse than they actually think. But two, I have to also remember I have to give context for things. That's like the one thing I actually struggle with. I'm like, oh, I can't just say that because I understand you'll get it, but other people are like, eh.
How much do you think is over? I think it's overrated though. Like, okay, so context is not overrated, but I think context in call it just like in podcasts in a certain way are overrated because you don't want to take them too much out of the conversation that's being had. You know, it's like because the moment you step out to be like, oh, but listeners, here's what this means. It's like that you've broken the is it fifth wall, third wall,
fourth wall,
fourth.
I went too far, man.
The two closest to it, but not the actual one. Well, see, you know what I'm saying? Like when you start addressing the audience
that's
directly,
a fair point.
You kind of break them out of them.
And it's always.
Go ahead.
I guess it's like the historian in me, or whatever, historian, quote unquote, right? It's like my training dictates that if I'm to give a conclusion, I must give evidence for that conclusion, right? Which necessarily means I'm kind of walking people down the path, so to speak, right? Or at least that's the type of writing I like to do. That's the type of thing I like to do.
This is a really good point because I mean, this is one of the. I don't think it's a disagreement we have. I think it's the point of difference in perspective we have. We used to write together on a blog. People might know this or not. I just broke the fourth wall there. But we used to write together on a blog, and one of the things that I liked about your writing, and it helped. I liked it because it made my job as an editor easier. Because I'm like, oh yeah, I can see where you're I can track it with you. But for me, I'm just like, oh, here's what I'm thinking about. Like, just if you want context, go find context. I also think, in some sense, context for stuff now is kind of overrated too, because people can just go look up, ask ChatGPT, whatever it is, like, oh, what does this thing mean, and then they'll get it for probably better and cheaper. Maybe better is arguable, but you can get it for cheaper. Cost of just pretty much having the time and the effort to go look it up. And in some sense, like, you need to, like, that filtering kind of, at least for me, what I think about it, it kind of needs to happen. Like, if you're curious enough to go look up the thing that I'm talking about, then I want you on my team to talk about.
That's fair. Like, you kind of think and write like the kind of old-fashioned academics in a way. Because they didn't do the, lets me walk you along the path. They make references to stuff that they just expected people to understand. And this was back like before there was Google or ChatGPT. Like, you had to, you had access to a library to look anything up you didn't know. If not, you're just like, well, I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's like, it is quite interesting. I don't know.
I agree. Sometimes I'm living true to their ideals, except now it's not that much at stake now.
No, I think the talk has never been cheaper. Let's just put it that
words have never been cheaper. Yes, okay, actually, really good point. I'm just going to quickly divert here and ask you this question: on what should people place more stress now that essentially words are cheap?
I think it's cliched, but I do think authenticity, right?
Think about that too.
But the difficult problem is, like, how do you get there, right? Because it's like, I could be like a drug lord and you wouldn't know it.
I would know it. Like, dude,
how?
Your sense of being integrated is so strong.
Did you call them?
Yeah, actually, I saw the suitcase left in my oven.
Okay, you're going to leave that on the street corner.
Are you just going to have a drug deal on stream right now?
No, you're going to leave it on the street corner.
So this is not a drug deal? Like, what's going on?
A man will come up and say, are you having a nice day? And you will say, yes, I am. And you will hand him the suitcase.
What if he's a cop?
Suitcase? It won't be a cop.
Well, I mean, everyone says, are you having a nice day?
You know what I expect.
I don't know what you expect. There, guy. Drug dealer guy. But I would know if you were a drug dealer.
Yeah, fair point. But I guess maybe I'm too. So let me know if I'm tooting my own horn too much. But I feel like I'm pretty much the same on stream as I am off stream for the most part.
Yes, except your jokes. They're a lot more tame.
Yes, the jokes are like, I would be fired so quick.
And you needle way more on stream, which is funny.
Oh,
I don't get to see needle count much in everyday life.
I try to be careful with the needling because I know it can get very quickly annoying. But I just needle on here because I know it's a really good way to get the banter going.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I like the way I figure it is like this is gonna be like the most like, oh, look at me, I'm so great. It's like act in such a way that you can act like you are in private in public as much as you possibly can.
Is that authenticity?
I think so. I think it also means that you're not painting, that you're painting yourself into a corner to a certain extent, because if people kind of know what to expect from you both privately and publicly, I think it makes life a little easier for you in a way.
You sound like Milton Friedman.
It also keeps the standards on yourself, too.
You sound like Milton Friedman, for the record. So, the reason I'm asking if that's authenticity is you can imagine someone who's just, whose operating model is, I'm going to copy everyone I see. Now, I guess at a margin, I guess you could say that's authentic.
Well, I don't know. I think everyone's on a spectrum.
Oh, no.
Because I think we all do it. Because we mimic our parents. We mimic what we think is most people. Some people are obviously on the other end of the spectrum, who we all kind of mimic what we see as being acceptable. And then we push on the boundaries, and then we see the reaction. And then when we get that reaction and we develop that model, to use your term, we end up just growing up with it, right? And that forms pretty quickly as kids, right? So in a sense, we all copy, quote unquote. But what you do mean is the chameleon, like the social parasite in a sense.
Right.
And they are very, like, we both met them while in our lives too. Like, I specifically know one person that you're probably thinking of too at the same time as me. And you can never really get a good read on them because you don't know what's real or what's the mask.
Right. And also, I guess, even to add more complexity to that, you don't know if that's their personality and you just don't know how to interface with that.
Yes. And it's very off-putting for me, especially because I'm like, okay, I have to have a good read of you before I can trust you with anything. Like, I volunteer quite frequently at a local food pantry.
All right, stop with your grandiosity. Yeah, we get it. You're a good person.
I'm such a good person. I am so great, the best. Everyone says it. And you can very quickly tell the people who are genuine and the people who are looking to manipulate you. And those who manipulate you, I don't turn my back on them, to be perfectly blunt. So it in a sense, having some form of authenticity is the ultimate way of forming social trust, I think.
Are you a good judge of that? Like,
I can pretty easily get bad vibes from people.
Right.
I'd say.
But on someone being authentically who they are, I guess that's hard to miss. Like,
it's almost like you can almost see it's like a fake smile in a way.
Yeah.
Everyone knows the fake smile. For me, it's like, okay, why are you brown nosing me? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that?
Interesting.
I don't know. That went way darker and deeper than I thought we both.
Yeah, I mean, I am thinking, I guess the topic I've been thinking about a lot recently, because I don't quite know where to place the stress, right? So you could say that for you to be authentic, you need to have a strong internal sense of. You cannot have disagreements if you're not authentic in some sense. Like you don't have a strong internal sense of this is what I believe and this is who I am in some sense. Now I think contra contrarians, who I'm defining who are pretty much people who just put not in front of everything, so like negative in front of everything, which means if you say yes, I say no. Say sky's blessed, sky's black, or whatever.
Yes.
Those people define their
Or
personality.
should I say no?
Ha, funny. Those people, like, they define who their sense of being as the opposite of what's going on. And that to me, I don't know if that's authentic or not. I don't know if that's authentic or not.
Well, I think so, actually, because there's the author G.K. Chesterton, who I rave about semi-frequently.
Yeah.
Don't say yeah like you're tired.
No. Yes, dude. If I play drinking game myself.
Give me
right?
more exuberance.
Yeah. I play drinking game. Okay, I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk to Jake today. How many times do we reference G.K. Chesterton? Like, I just take a shot for every single time we do that. I don't drink for that.
You would die.
I would have alcohol poisoning.
Yes, very quickly. Any hoozles, in his book Heretics, he no, Orthodoxy, sorry. He describes actually how it used to be people identified themselves as people nowadays, and they identified themselves as heretics. Like, and they take it as like a badge of honor. Like, I'm not that. I'm like anti this. And Chesterton points out that, well, it used to be that you never wanted to be called heretical, probably because it would get your head cut off. But it's also because they maintain that no, I'm not a heretic. I am the orthodoxy. I am the right way. So in a sense, I feel like that's a healthier way of viewing the world, because it's like, I don't think you should identify yourself as being anti something.
I agree with this point for sure.
Because you're building your foundation on something you fundamentally disagree with.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. Actually, this is not to bring back to anime, but I think a really good.
Well, it's an anime channel, so
that is true. We talked about this last week, actually. I guess of anime being thought experiments, right? And you can see that very almost starkly in the character of Shigaraki. He's not, though his affectations and the way he impacts the world comes out as being the opposite of the good. Essentially, like, I'm here to destroy. Like, destroying things is destruction is my MO.
To steal, kill, and destroy, as the good book would say.
Exactly. And I think that kind of character is needed for such a strong character as Deku to thrive. Like, it's not obvious to me that, a weak villain is necessary for a character who you've done an in-depth description of who he is, as he's almost too good, right? Like, that kind of character needs someone who's almost pure evil. But
yes, okay. So go off that point real quick. So there was a show back in the early 2000s called Justice League Unlimited, and had like Batman, Superman, all of them, right? The Justice League. And at the end of the series, there was the threat of a villain called Darkseid, who basically came to destroy the Earth because Superman had effectively killed him at one point, and he wanted his revenge. And what happens is that the League of Supervillains, or whatever the heck they call themselves, joins up with the Justice League to fight. And the League are like, oh, why? And I think it's Atomic Skull goes, this is our home too. And the reason I bring that up is, when you look at Shigaraki's crew, you have varying levels of, I guess, insanity there, right? Because you have some people who are just there because it's like, I have a motive, right? But Shigaraki's motive is to be, the antithesis to the current thesis, to use Hegelian terms, right? Because he sees, it's almost Marxist in a sense, actually, because it's like, everything that is old must be burned to the ground. Nothing that is old can move forward with me, in a sense. And now he's not saying, he doesn't believe anything's going to come after him, obviously. He believes he is the apocalypse.
Right.
He
Perfect.
believes he is the Ragnarok.
That's
right.
And this is exactly, we've come to the same spot. You can't
stumbling and
right, but you can't say he's
in the walls, but I made it.
That is authenticity in a very dark and morbid sense. And I guess you could kind of pull out,
it's almost inherently unmotivated in a way.
Right. It's what will kill you if you don't do anything about it. I think that's authenticity, because like there's always that nagging voice at the back of your head telling who you actually are. Right now, you could play a character. Many people do this in corporate world, whatever. But I think this is one of the reasons you have friends and partners and stuff like that who you can trust, is that they are almost an excuse for you to show that part of yourself.
Yes.
That would be hidden if you don't have them. This is also another reason that Shigaraki's personality got perverse pretty quickly. He didn't. That full part of himself didn't have full expression because he didn't have anyone other than All for One. All for One.
Yes. It's actually, oddly enough, related to Kaguya-sama. So this past week, I guess I was going to say this for What Are You Watching? But I, one evening, I think it was Monday? Yes, Monday. I watched the entirety of the First Kiss Never Ends movie, which is like basically, it was broken up into 4 episodes. And I watched the dub this time rather than the sub, because the dub had come out.
I was going to ask what accounted for you to watch the dub over the sub, but you just said it. So
yeah, I love me some Kaguya-sama dub. That's the show I prefer it. And I watched it, and it brings up that point of masks, right? And I guess I won't spoil the whole thing, but it's like Shirogane, the main male character, effectively collapses under the weight of his mask, in a sense. And what that entire movie reveals is that both the main characters they're both wearing masks. And it actually does a really good job of making you question the entire series in a way. Because how much of it previously was the real them?
I think even what comes to mind for me actually is that whole show is a call it an exhortation on masks, I guess. Where it's almost like they would not have found each other had they not put on those masks.
That's exactly the point. So Kaguya gets to the point where she's like, I don't want to have a mask around him anymore. I want to be vulnerable with him. But she's terrified he's not going to like what he sees. But Shirogane is like, you won't like me without my mask. It's remember that movie Hitch? With Will Smith and Kevin James?
I think so.
Where he's the pickup artist, basically, and he helps all the basically undateable dudes. Yeah. We both hated. I recall we both hated the ending of that movie, but we loved the beginning.
Yes, I remember this actually. Yes. Actually.
So the main female, I can't remember her name, but she gets with Kevin James's character, right? And Kevin James is a fat, middle-aged dude. And he's an accountant in the movie, so utterly unremarkable as an individual, right? But he's madly in love with this rich woman, right? And so Hitch, I can't remember, Will Smith's character, helps him become the person that she would like. And it's slowly revealed that she's actually quirky and kind of weird, and that they actually really fit together, and he doesn't really have to put up much pretense anymore. But she, the female, confronts Will Smith at the end of the movie and says, well, I would have found him, I would have loved him anyways, And Will Smith kind of fires back, no, you wouldn't. You wouldn't have ever noticed him if I hadn't done what I did. And that's
the value of a mask.
It's the counterpoint. It's like, right. And oftentimes we have to have masks to protect us.
Yes. I think this actually is another perspective on what authenticity is. maybe authenticity is learning when to take the mask off and when to put it on in a good way. I don't know.
It's tough because like in Kaguya movie, Shirogane ends up in the hospital because he collapses effectively from love sickness,
Yeah.
with a reference to the earlier season.
Mm-hmm.
And the quote unquote quack doctor comes in and is talking to him. And the doctor is actually like he's an old man, right? And Shirogane is describing how like growing up he had to get good grades to earn his mother's affection, and that when he couldn't perform, his mother finally abandoned the family. And so, in order to be seen, in order to be recognized, in order to be respected, he worked freakishly hard to get good grades, even though that's not naturally who he is. And this explains a lot. So, like the preceding seasons, he, like for example, on athletic stuff, he sucks. So there's a bunch of hilarious montages of like Fujiwara teaching him how to do everything. And this is all to avoid the public embarrassment. And this weight it just weighs on him like a cross, effectively. And the female characters are trying to basically convince him to take it off, but he's like, look, I wouldn't be here without it. And so the movie kind of ends on a weird note, because they're both willing to open up to each other to a certain extent, but they're also unwilling to completely leave their masks behind, in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess even that itself is a mask. I think.
I think so.
The point that the show ends in that way is the show doesn't want to choose what it is, and by not choosing,
because there's no choice in it, because it's like that's reality.
Right.
Well, we went off topic.
Yeah, I'm like, how good bring some back? How is this gonna come back to the topic of today? I guess set the stage, because we're now at 30 minutes for the record.
Amen, brother. So the topic of today is onion ninjas.
They could tell that
I'll
from
expand. I'll expand on that.
First of all, they could see from
people like Sanj who don't understand anything. Gosh,
everywhere. Like the background video, the thumbnail, the title of this video, it's all over.
Ninjas. Okay, fine. For the uninitiated, like Sanj here.
Okay. Like from under the bus there, but okay.
It's about the saddest moments that we've seen in anime, right? It's not like a top 10 list or whatever. It's like the moments that like hit us right in the feels personally, right? Going over this topic was actually surprisingly difficult for me in a way.
Same. Also,
like there's plenty of shows that are sad and all that stuff. Like AOT, for example, Attack on Titan is depressing.
Yes.
Jujutsu Kaisen is depressing. A lot of shows are depressing. They have that weight on them, right? But I thinking through all the shows that I'm like that actually hit me in the feels, it actually came to some pretty surprising shows. So take it away, Captain.
Before we go on there, I have a question about it for you. What did that tell you about your emotions, or about emotions in general?
That I'm very susceptible to melancholy.
Does that surprise you?
I think. Well, no, it's let me get okay. Sorry, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. I should say, let me rephrase that. I'm susceptible to the inner turmoil of characters, right? So the scenes that get me are the scenes where characters break, in a sense. Right? That the emotion that's been building and building and building has finally broken loose. And now very few of these scenes did actually like shed a tear or whatever, but I was sad. Like it was very sad. So yeah, I think that's the best way to put it.
Interesting. what does it tell you
How
about
about you,
emotion?
HBU, bruh?
Oh, before you get to me, but what does that tell you about emotions in general, though? Like what?
That we're incredibly empathetic creatures, humans. Because, like, look at it this way: like, they're drawings, they're connected lines on a page, right? With a voice actor to back it up. And yet here I am, like, having emotion over it. That's a heck of an empathy drive.
Yeah. I think for me, what my list taught me is that I value the struggle.
Interesting.
And
that actually does not surprise me about you at all.
Me neither. Like, I value the struggle and also the acknowledgement of the struggle. Right. So
okay. So I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt you here rudely.
Okay. Also, it makes it more rude that you called it rude, for the record.
Yes, rude. That's actually a really succinct way of saying a lot of your personality, actually.
Interesting. All right. Well, lay it on us.
I'm going to lay it on you, right? I'm going to do my pocket Peterson and diagnose you, sir.
Right.
For those who don't know, Sanj has an immigrant background. I don't know. Whatever. However the heck you would say English words.
I think the keyword is immigrant.
Yes, he's an immigrant. Fresh off the boat, in fact.
Actually, not fresh off the boat, dude. Screw you.
Fresh-ish.
Oh,
Been here
less
for
than
a
a
shorter
decade,
period than you were over there.
That is fair.
Yes, so fresh-ish.
Okay.
He's discount at the store at this point.
Heavy on the ish, though. Heavy on the ish.
And so he went from frankly very little to being actually quite successful, right? Like, he's more successful than most Americans will ever be, right? Now, a big part of it is that he's frankly brilliant in a lot of ways, right?
Oh, thanks, bud.
I
Ruined it for you.
Yes, I did. But the other part is that he is, I wouldn't say ambitious, actually. I don't think that's the right way to put it.
Obsessive is the word, I think.
Yeah, that it leans into obsessiveness, although you try to control that, I think. It's a lot because you surround yourself with good people, you've been blessed with good parents and all that stuff, right? And so you keep it in the right direction. But I think you're driven is perhaps a better term. And so you absolutely adore people like David Goggins. Who's gonna lift the boats?
And the logs, yes, sir.
Oh, if we're a good show, we could pull that up and put it over.
Look it up on YouTube. There's a context for you.
It's amazing. Let me put it this way: that phrase caused this man to run 10 miles without any prep. Yeah, he effed up his knee.
Still to this day.
Yes. But he did it. That's the point. You love Joe Rogan. You love Jocko Willink. You love these guys who are incredibly successful and driven, right? And it's not just, you're not really attracted, I think, to the CEO type. You're attracted to the people who've actually done really hard things and succeeded in them and continue to do hard things. And I think that's actually a lot about you. I think that's a very key part of your personality.
Yes. Just hard pivot here. That's what we could pray. God,
good job.
Stream. We're like 30 minutes into the stream. Let it go well. Amen.
Amen, brother.
That's really good insight, I think. And I think listeners were able to get from the clips I picked, the clips that touched me. Mm-hmm. I guess I underrated how much the acknowledgement by other people matters. Mm-hmm. I think. Acknowledgement of how much effort one puts in matters. And this is one thing that I like about, that I know about you. Like, you work insanely hard. I feel like it's turned to like a back stroking contest. like
I'm a lazy.
You work insanely hard under the radar. Like, frankly, this this stream will not be what it will not even be up at all if you didn't just like work as hard as you did under the ground, essentially. And also this goes back to everything that you do at your church, the food shelf thing, everything else you
I
do.
suppose would be the colloquial term.
What was it?
Food pantry would be the
Food pantry.
colloquial. I can't speak. I can't work hard on English.
Yeah, there you go. But anyway, all that said is that surprised me. And what did I learn about emotions in general? I think that emotions in general are, well, I guess I would stress more now that I view emotions much more predictable than I used to think, I guess. Because now I think look at where the money is. Like, look at where the money, meaning money being resources, like the time or whatever. Like, what, track the money, track the resource, track the time, and you find what people hold dearly to them, and they'll have emotions around that. Now, to predict
reveal preference.
Exactly. Economists call it just reveal. You said that, reveal preference. Well, yes, that's right. Okay, now, do you want to
look at us understanding ourselves more?
I know. You want to go to background on why you chose this specific one?
I'm sorry, repeat that. I was monologuing.
Oh, okay, nice. You way to talk yourself there. But do you want to give a background on why you chose this specific?
I find, so, just as we went over, I find it utterly fascinating which scenes affect us, right, in media in general. Right, we're focusing on anime here because it's a visual thing, but I remember specifically, there was, so, embarrassing enough, I didn't learn to read until I was about 7 or 8 years old. Right?
Interesting.
So rather late for a child. Yeah.
Oh, no,
the reason that's interesting is I got a 35 on my reading section of my ACT.
Okay, right? So
I can read good. I like it. The reason I didn't learn to read until that late was I didn't want to read, in my terms, baby books. I didn't want to read Dr. Seuss. I didn't want to read, any of the little kid books. I wanted to read like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, bigger books. So my mom, bless that woman, was so patient with me because she would grab like these bigger books and she would sit there and read several chapters a night to me. And in the process, she would help me work on some of the words and stuff like that. And it got me so into the books that I eventually picked up the books myself and started to struggle my way through them. And I remember the first book I sobbed during it, actually, was a book called The Island of the Blue Dolphin. And the dog died in the book. Spoiler.
Look at you. Look at you having emotions.
Yeah. So I find it utterly fascinating, like, where things hit people, how media affects them and all that stuff. I find it very, very fascinating.
Interesting. Well,
yeah.
Here we go to play your first clip.
Let's do it. Oh, music.
Got it. I knew exactly what you're talking about. I got it.
心配いらねえってリムルの旦那がついてんだからよ。そうだよせよ。旦那がくれた回復薬すげえ効き目だったじゃないですか。おやこれは皆さんもお見舞いですかな。リグルドさんもっすか。はい。シズ殿の着替えをお持ちしたところです。
I think we're past it. Maybe.
Are we?
I think so. Oh yeah, we're past it. I was very confused. I was like,
I
don't remember the scene. We'll go back to
right here.
12:20.
Okay.
Good thing I wrote that down. Oh, I guess pause it real quick.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay, so I just want to give a little context for people who haven't seen the show. This is we should have said what the title was at the beginning. We are amateurs. This is that time I got reincarnated as a slime. Excellent isekai. Probably one of the best, I believe. Like top 2 maybe. In this scene, the character Shizu and Ramiru, who's the slime, had just defeated a demon called Ifrit. Ifrit had been possessing Shizu and basically gave her great power, But she was slowly but surely losing control of it. And part of that power is that she was basically immortal, right? But after they defeated the demon, which got loose, the age is now catching back up with her. And so she's very quickly dying. And she has just died here. Spoilers, I guess, to a scene. So, sorry. Go ahead.
そこにいたんですね。もう私を置いていかないで。
All right.
Okay. Well, that still gets me in the feels a little bit.
That was touching.
Yeah, so I guess for people who don't know, her mother died during World War II. Shizuin was, which her real name was, summoned from, our world, Japan, to this world, right? But the time period was World War II, and the scene is where her mother and her were running from the bombings that were occurring on Japan at the time, and her mother gets hit and dies. But the Inferno proceeds to circle up and deliver her to the next other world. And so I just die. It's basically the reason it's so touching to me is because it's a character finally getting peace, finally coming to rest after a lifetime of struggle. So I always found that to be incredibly touching.
How much of that do you think is because of the show? And I guess how much do you bring into that reading of the show, of the character? Where do you come in?
One of my favorite verses from the Bible comes from Acts 31:10, I think. It's basically reads, King David served God in his generation and now rests with his ancestors. And the reason it's one of my favorite verses is that encapsulates what a good life is. That you are born and you do what you're supposed to do, and then your reward is rest. Rest from all the struggles of life, all the heartache, right? I guess the Buddhists and the Hindus would call this nirvana in a sense, right? And that's how I see that scene, is that she had a very, very hard life. That was basically nothing but endless struggle for her. But in the end, she was able to find her rest. And this is the whole series seems to link Rimuru as being kind of a messianic figure in a sense. Later in the series, he kills the king of the orcs, and the king of the orcs is look, I can't go back from what I've done, so we must fight to the death now. And Rimuru says, I will eat your sin, effectively, right? And that line is basically linking him as being kind of a godlike figure in this world. That he's able to exculpate people's sin, in a sense. Which is that's a whole stream in and of itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess the way that hits me is the touch of having her become a child at the end again.
Mm-hmm.
I've begun to, I guess, think more about how much of life goes back to childhood in a very real sense, right? And this is, you can see this clearly in romance, which I don't want to talk about right now, but also in what people long for. Because in the real sense, you could say she's gotten what she longed for. She's seen her mother, but there's a part of her that was stuck as a child, essentially, and that part of her goes back to being a child. I am curious about the mother, and the fact that the mother remains a mother, or is it just all her perception? Like it's so complex because you don't know exactly how she should handle that grief when she loses her mother at such a young age. But when she finds
it was a life cut too short. Like her life was stolen from her.
Right.
In both senses. Like the mother's life was stolen by a war she had nothing really to do with in the end. And the little girl was used and abused by those who summoned her. And ultimately that abuse killed her in the end. But in the end, like she, as she dies, tells Rimuru like one of Rimiru's powers is like that he's able to basically eat stuff, and so he could potentially like eat the entire world, and it would be contained all within him, right? And she basically asks him, "Please, like, consume me. Basically, I don't want to die in this world. I hate this world." Because that world has done nothing but harm to her. Which is sad in and of itself, right? So, yeah.
That was beautiful. All right, well,
that was...
Let's go to mine.
Still makes me sad, dude.
I know, but I'm thinking about... This is going to be tough. Like, I just grab your tissues here, people, because this is about to be rough. All right. So, my choice... from My Hero Academia, the last season. Not the last season. Today is season 24.
6, I believe.
Season 6, I think. Yes, season 6.
6,
right.
4, whatever it is.
Season 6.
They're all the ending.
And this is when Deku had gone rogue. I say rogue meaning like he takes it upon himself to like fix the world in his own way, and then he comes back. And this is before the episode of No Man is an Island. He comes back, and he essentially, like, I guess, people there are struggling accepting him because they're like, dude, like, All For One wants you. Like, you're gonna bring All For One here. One of the things that actually just struck me is the fact that a different flavor of this has happened before, where the Todoroki's family the Shoto family, whatever. They go to like Endeavor is like at his wit's end. Like he's like, I caused this. Dabi, his son, is a villain, and he's been exposed, and he has to go to public, all that stuff. And he, his family's trying to mend that rift of accepting the man who took on way too much as a hero. Not acknowledging how that affected others. And even that scene itself is touching, but man, this one, all right, we play it here. That's the background. So I'm going to quickly roll it up here, share it with you. Oh, where'd that go?
Hang in there, baby. Technical issues.
Yeah, technical issues. Let's put it back down, actually.
Just imagine a cat hanging off of a wire or something like that. Just,
all right, there you go.
Hang in there, baby. We got you. There we are. Drop the kitten. Let's go.
All right. Gonna move this over here. There's lots going on, by the way. This is what you get when you're doing it all live in the studio.
We're doing it live.
Doing it live. All right. Let's get the volume up here. And let's get this up.
そんな奴が休みたいからってここに来るなよって話だろうが。
違う、迷惑かけないようここを出て行ったんです。連れ戻したのは私たちです。
For the record, this is quite long, so I'm
We're gonna pause it and talk so we're not pulling a Hassan Piker and just staring blankly at the screen
right. Anyway,
for way
but
too long.
from right here, it starts.
Yes.
だから狙われる。だから行かなきゃいけない。そうやって出て行った彼が今どんな姿が見えていますか。この現状を一番どうにかしたいと願っていつ襲われるかもわからない道を進む人間の姿を見てくれませんか。特別な力はあっても特別な人なんていません。
この人のことは僕に任せてください。
I'm gonna pause there real quick and just man, I will say
Sorry, go ahead.
like his mother as a device of everyone's
Oh my
feelings
gosh.
is just so good.
Okay, like she is probably like like top 3 or 4 anime moms in my opinion.
I agree.
But one, because she's there.
Mhm.
But 2, because she's not okay with this. She does not want to let her son go. And in a sense that, like, that risks going into the devouring mother, to use like a Jungian phrase, right? But it's not that. She sees her son over and over again end up in the hospital or wounded or nearly dying. And, I can't imagine any mother having to go through that,
Yeah.
And she's like, Deku's basically a soldier at this point in time. And he's constantly having to go off to war. And she does not know if he's going to come back. And I cannot imagine for her how tough that is. Because, in her mind, and she's correct, he is too young to take on this type of fight.
He's a high schooler, for God's sake.
Yeah, and One for All, All Might, knows this, but he can't do anything about it because he doesn't have the power anymore. Because, like, from season 1, he tried to protect Deku from this while he trained him, but he can't do that anymore. A good another reference, I suppose, would be like Atla, Avatar: The Last Airbender. What's the monk's name? Gyako, or I can't remember his name, but Aang's mentor refused to allow the other monks to train Aang to be the Avatar early on because he's like, he's too young. Give him a couple of years. And it's very touching because it's like it's trying to shield the young from the horrors of war. But after a certain point, it's like there's no choice anymore. So it's just tragic,
It is, and the speech she gives is actually one of the more wholesome case to make for a family. Right? She says, just because he has a special power doesn't mean he's a special person. He's a person. That's what he's at the end of the day. Like, he also needs rest. Like, he might look, and when she says, look at him, and I'm like, and people's eyes the scales start to fall off their eyes. I'm like, people need appreciation.
Well, it's
and encouragement.
Ochako here is like, and I don't care like who you ship or whatever in this series, but she is acting basically like the wife in a sense. she's providing that room for Deku, right, to be able to rest, to be vulnerable.
Which, taking on that role, because she's essentially like appealing to people's feelings, like, because nothing. If you take a purely rationalist perspective and be like, okay, well, obviously, if you're gonna be utilitarian about this, let him go out. Why are you bringing him into a bunch of other people? And then, but if you just take the thought experiment a bit, again, this is one for the thought experiment, because like, okay, well, when there are competing interests, people will not be utilitarian. People will be selfish, right? And then there's the person who needs to essentially call out, to bring back an earlier theme in this episode, the empathy in people. That is highly underrated in anyone in general, because the world is always demanding of you. Now, I think there are two ways you can take this. The first way is for you to get the emotional impact to hit other people. You need to work your butt off. Like, it has to be clear from everyone's perspective when she says, "Look at him," that you've been grinding. Like, you don't deserve to have the red carpet rolled out for you if you've
just
not,
because you exist.
Exactly. Like, you need to earn that. And on the other side of it is like, once you've earned this, you've earned that. Now, you should also take that with a certain sort of humility, like, which means you don't deserve it. You sure as heck know you've earned it if you get it. And the reason I reference the fact that the episode after this is the No Man's an Island episode is that we see Deku sleeping at the end. And it's such a simple scene, but we are struck by the fact that, the sleep he's getting, like, he's actually resting. That's not to say that the world isn't crazy and stuff isn't going on out there or whatever. But he's getting rest, and I don't know. For people who, work as hard as they do at anything, whatever that might be, I think there's a place for encouragement and acknowledgement of what they've done, I think.
Well said. Do I continue this?
We are at an hour. Do you want to just jump into WAWW and WAWR, or do you want to go into we can do this again another time, for the record?
Yeah, let's just save the rest of them, because it's probably a good spot to hold off. We have, just for people to know, we have 2 more. So if we want to do like a part 2, we
let us
can
know in the
totally
comments.
do that. Yeah.
Let us know in the comments.
A single comment.
We're begging you, please comment.
You can control our destiny.
Yes, you can control our destiny. All right. So what are you watching what are you reading this week?
What am I reading? I started The Pursuit of God by A.W. Tozer, which is a really
You're
good
reading
book.
Tozer? Dude, let's go. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, from that.
That reaction was to say that Tozer is a deep religious thinker, for the record.
Yes, a very, very complex thinker, actually. So it's very good so far. Highly recommend it. You can actually get it for free online because it's that old of a book. So I've been very much enjoying that. Yeah, that's about it so far.
What are you
been
watching?
Busy
Though?
with other stuff. I've been watching the usual simulcast stuff on Crunchy and High Dive. But as I said in the intro, I took the time to sit there and rewatch Kaguya-sama The First Kiss Never Ends, and highly recommend it. It's very, very good.
Awesome. Well, I'm reading the Elon Musk biography by Walter Isaacson.
Interesting.
And talk about a crazy
I didn't
guy,
know he
dude.
did. I didn't know that was by Walter Isaacson. That's interesting.
It is by Walter Isaacson.
I have his book on Henry Kissinger, actually.
I have a book on Benjamin Franklin. I think he did one on Steve Jobs or something.
I can't remember. He goes all over the place.
He is, dude. Oh my goodness, Elon Musk is a crazy character. I mean, I'm glad the world has him, but golly gee whiz.
I mean, I am assuming you've heard. I think it was Peterson's conversation with Chris Williamson where he describes Elon Musk's personality, which I think that's by far the best take on Elon Musk out there.
Yeah.
And the most honest take.
It's good. Also, in case people are like me and not understanding this deep revolution that just happened in Spotify. So Spotify has audiobooks now. It's been there for a while. I did not know that they had it on there until I'm like, oh, I can actually watch this. And so I don't know how I feel. I'm conflicted on audiobooks. Like I don't know how I feel about them. I do think I'm partial to the physical books, which in something I need to underrate more. Yeah, because I think it's overrated for me. Physical books. You should talk about that later. I value them for sure, but I think I overrate them a little bit. But I don't know how I feel about audiobooks yet. I'm conflicted on them. But as a means of understanding history and biographies, I am going all in. And I've always found the fact that my hesitance to listen to audiobooks is heightened by the fact that there is a barrier for entry. So like you'd have to get a different app, Audible, and then you have to get credits. You have to understand how that app works, and then even the voice acting isn't that good because the books you want to read are older or less popular, and then you'd have to switch between apps when you hop into it's a whole thing. But I use Spotify almost as much as like Spotify and text messages have to be both the apps I use way more, and then ChatGPT obviously.
Yes,
that I use way more than any other app on my phone, and having Spotify now have audiobooks. Now the downside to that is there's a 15-hour limit per month, which you can top up for $12.99 a year. Now,
which isn't bad.
I paid that. I'm like, I'm gonna do that because I'm getting 10 more hours.
Well, it's $1 a month, literally, for you.
Pretty much, yeah. And I'm like,
and the fact is, like, you live what are you 30 minutes away from work?
Pretty
so
much.
That's an hour a day you can listen.
Yeah.
So like, let's say it's a 15-hour audiobook. Get 15 days, you're done.
Yeah. And I'm obviously I don't go chill on my things. Like I'm barreling through this book. So but
you're probably listening to on double speed, knowing you.
I was so tempted to listen to it, but I'm like, I'm gonna enjoy this. I'm gonna slow it down, listen to it. The voice actor is really good. I love it. But if you are like me, want to try audiobooks or want to get into audiobooks and have a Spotify subscription, Spotify has audiobooks now included.
Noted. That's
Not
actually very
sponsored by
tempting for me
Spotify.
because I use both Audible and Apple Music.
But you have a family subscription for your Audible, correct?
Yes, but so we got rid of the subscription part, like the monthly one. And my brother and I, we basically, like, if we see a book we like, we'll buy the credits on there and do it. But if I can just pay for, so like the advantage that to go back to like the advantages of streaming is the cost to try something is so low with streaming.
Yes.
But with Audible, I basically have to know I want to listen to this book. And I'm willing to do that. And now I'm willing to try stuff with, like, your random book, physical book, for whatever reason, right? Even if I don't know if I'll like it. But Audible, that's I don't know, for whatever reason in my mind it's different. I don't know.
Yeah.
So Spotify, it's tempting depending on how their catalog is.
That's right. So the catalog, from what I've seen, is not that extensive, but it's gonna become extensive here soon. We can talk about it off stream, but there's a plan where you can do a duo and get a discount on it. We can talk about that later, if you're tempted or not. But all right. Last week's stream was not up.
Yes.
I have a stream. That's entirely on me. But
to quote Ishigami, shame.
Yes, shame. But I will say that by the grace of God Almighty alone, from next week, stuff should get better and change and become more quick. We'll just
It's
say
almost
that.
like you'll be going through something life changing.
Almost like that. But I'm just gonna say that as a preface of the fact that I have so many ideas. I'm ready to execute on this. I don't want to hype it up too much, but
drag me along whether I want to or not.
Exactly, and subscribe so you don't miss any of these new content and stuff like that. So, do you have anything more to say?
Comment, like, comment.
Yes, like, comment. You make Jake happy. Okay, like he cries himself to sleep at night. In fact, no one comments on this video. It's a comment.
So many tears.
Why are you ad-libbing in a whisper?
I don't know.
I will stop with the whisper. I will hang up on you, dude.
Should I do more?
Stop! Stop!